There's a snooper image on Macintosh Garden that is used for testing hardware and stuff, so I want to test the FPU like I said before. So I put it on this SD card and I got my floppy emulator out, so I'm going to go ahead and get her done. Make sure it actually boots because I don't know if there's going to be enough RAM, so yeah. What the hell? That's weird. Why is it flickering? Oh shit, that's hot. Oh no. Yeah. Well, looks like my floppy emu's dead. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That sucker's cooking. That is what? XC95. That's a CPLD. So it's junk. Well, that's just great. That's just great. Yeah. What is this? Version 1.3. Number 235. So, very early run. Well, okay. Well, I guess I'm going to have to figure out what to do about that. I haven't used this much, but it's junk now. I got to see if the source code's available or the firmware is available for that chip. Yep, that's a problem. I wonder what the hell caused that. Hey everybody in YouTube land. Well, this is a tangential video, which will only make sense if you watched my other videos on the Macintosh SE30. But my floppy Emu, which is an early run, version 1.3.0235, died just spontaneously as soon as I turned the power on. So, as we see, nothing. Alright, so we know that's dead. So, what I found out by the courtesy of my finger getting burnt is the CPLD fried. Now, this board, I'm pretty sure from the research I've done, this board has a known design flaw. So, the CPLD is one that I've used in my Macintosh portable RAM card. The CPLD is a 9572XL, which is a 3.3 volt chip that is 5 volt tolerant. But there's a flaw with this chip. And if the 5 volts shows up on the IO lines before the 3.3 volts can stabilize, it can fry the chip. And that's what happened here. It's a known issue. I don't know if Steve from Big Mess of Wires has fixed it in his later designs. I think he has, but I'm not sure. But it's an issue. So now the only fix is to replace the CPLD, which it can happen again. But there's a problem with that if you don't have the code to flash onto the chip. Now, luckily, from the research I've done, apparently he's got a program written in the app mill that will flash this chip through the app mill instead of needing an external programmer from Xilinx, which I have that programmer, but you don't need it. So, in theory, I can replace this chip with another one, put the firmware on the SD card, which is sitting here, and then hold the button combo and reflash the chip. In theory. So, yeah, let's see if we can do that. So to fix this mess, even if temporarily, what we got to do is we're going to have to pull the CPLD. Unfortunately, the CPLD is really close to that connector, so it's going to melt the crap out of it with the hot air tools. So what I'm likely going to need to do is unsolder that and get it out of my way. And once I do that, I will be able to remove this. The other thing I want to do too is this has got a problem with drifting contrast as well. So the fix for that is this needs clamped down better. And that's the problem. These things get loose and they don't want to stay in there, so I'm going to solder those down. I'm going to clamp on them a bit and then solder them down. That should fix that problem. So I don't have any spare CPLDs on hand, but what I do have is a development board for the CPLD that I'm going to steal the parts off of. Because why the hell not? Now that I took the connector off, I want to talk about something. So, this CPLD, as I've already mentioned, I think, but I'm going to mention it again because these are going together in clips. This 9572XL is a 5-volt tolerant part. Now, the problem is the 5-volt signals, if they are present before the 3.3 volt line stabilizes, it can damage the chip, especially if full current is allowed to pass through. I'm experienced with this chip because I've used it on my Macintosh portable RAM designs. And the one thing I did with that design, and I'm not seeing a failure yet, is I put series resistance between the IO lines and any 5-volt sources unless it was going through a 3.3 volt transceiver. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, now that I got the connector off, we can see it better. I'm probably going to see, I think this connector no, it's not the same. Dang it. What I was hoping for is if it was, but what I'm probably going to do is put this connector on the side here like this, and I'm probably going to solder these pins just kind of positioned like this right in these holes. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add resistors to all of the signals going to this connector, and that way we can have this in line with the CPLD with resistors going to the signals, because you can see all of the signals to the CPLD that we need to modify. Not a big deal. So that's what we're going to do, and that should solve the problem, and it should never happen again. Alright, while that one's cooling down over there, I got the two CPLDs out. That's the bad one, so I'm going to go ahead and move this one over here. You know, add a little bit of fresh flux and solder it in. Once again, waiting for the hot air tool to cool down. Got the chip from over in this guy, my old dev board, moved over. And that's installed now. Just have to clean up the flux a little bit. It's actually not that bad. Make sure there's no shorts anywhere under there. Looks clean. So we will use this tool to, you know, pick the chips up off the board. So that's now garbage. So I can take this guy and go yeet. And then let's modify this to prevent this from happening again. Before I start messing around with the connector, I'm still trying to come up with a plan, because the keyway, it goes in like this, so the keyway would face down. So even if I positioned it there, there's still a large gap, and it's going to be fun to work with. I'll figure that out in a minute. But before I start fighting with that, I think what I want to do is grab a couple of wires and run it off my power supply. And say we do a flash on the CPLD first. I'm going to get the firmware put on the SD card. I'm going to get the screen put on here, which I did fix the screen. I soldered it down on all 4 tabs. So yeah, let's get the screen on here. Well, I can't do that yet. I gotta get the power connected. So get the power connected. Let's get the screen on here and get the flash on the SD card and make sure we can get the CPLD programmed and it doesn't throw an error. Alright, now we're powered up. That's to be expected because I didn't put the firmware on it yet. And the screen is still screwed, so I'm not surprised there. Garbage. Anyways, we're gonna go ahead and go get the firmware loaded. But yeah, I got the 2 wires on and I got it running off my power supply, so we'll grab the SD card and get that figured out. Man, that screen is just garbage. Terrible. That was a bad idea. Alright, so what we're going to do now is we're going to flash the CPLD, which I need 3 hands to do that. Alright, so here we go. Updating CPLD. Let's see what happens. Now I got both firmware files on here, so it's a 2-step process. First off, we're flashing the CPLD. Success! Ah, wrong CPLD. So now we got to flash the firmware. So we press and hold that. Reboot. Ah, it takes two hands. All right, flashing. Self-test okay. Boom. There we go. We are now. Okay. I don't know what Emu mode it's in. Okay. Alrighty then. So now we're good. But yeah, it doesn't. Anyways. Hey, we're somewhere now. This is absolutely painful. So I'm taking my rotary engraver tool and I'm taking out all this copper. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide this in here and then run jumper wires over and then seal all of this in place. So we won't have this problem again. Alright, so this is like the hackiest repair ever, but I took the rotary tool and just went after it with a routing bit. So that's all cleared off now. That will allow me to put this right in here and make jumper wires and then seal it in. And there we go. I got the resistors in place now. I just have to trim them up on the front side and the back side and all that stuff. But that should do it. Now, could you use a resistor pack here? You know, like one of those dip resistor network things? Yeah, you could. But I just used what I had on hand. It'll work. It'll do what I want it to do. And now, granted, this is a pre-war 1940 floppy emu device from the original days. The new ones have the protection stuff built into it already, I'm sure. But for this one, any of you that own these older ones, you got to do this. You have to do this or it will fail. It's inevitable. And there it is done on the top side. So now I just need to trim it up on the bottom. All the grounds are connected together, which is the same as those. And I need to make sure there's nothing else, which I don't think there is. And I'm going to trim all those up. And I think we're good. I think we can call this guy complete. And I'll probably seal that in. There we go. It's working. Yay. We're all good now. Awesome. So now we can finally move on here. That's my Lido boot disk image. So hopefully we're good.